You guys can see my screen just fine?
Yep, absolutely.
Awesome. Awesome. So again, finding professional fulfillment after sport. And I'll say this right now, don't be mad at me because some of the content echoes what was just shared in the previous presentation by Donovan. And so, which is good. That lets you know that some of the stuff we're talking about is valid. And so so the goals for the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to increase awareness of potential career challenges that athletes face once they're done playing. Secondly, learn strategies for overcoming those potential career challenges. And then thirdly, understand keys, what I call the 5 keys for finding professional fulfillment. A little bit about me. So I'm from Detroit, Michigan. I don't know if you've ever been there. It's we're here in the Midwest, and I grew up in a fairly rough neighborhood to say the least. Surrounded by a lot of negativity, a lot of violence and gangs and drugs, and just a lot of craziness. But my parents, they introduced my brothers, and I have 2 brothers. They introduced us to sports at a very young age. And years later, I asked my dad, "Why did you put us in so many sports?" And he told me he was just trying to really keep us focused and get our mind off of what was going on around us. But little did he know that we all would fall in love with football. And so about the age of 9 years old, my dad went to sign me up for the West Side Detroit Broncos, and I knew from that point on that I wanted to be a professional football player. I set the goal, honestly, about 9 years old, of not only going to the NFL, but having a 20-year career like the guy I grew up idolizing, Jerry Rice. And so from that point on, my whole life was pretty much focused. I had this tunnel vision. I was focused on accomplishing this goal and having this long career in the NFL. After Little League, went to Henry Ford High School, and then was able to earn a scholarship to the University of Wisconsin, played under the great coach Barry Alvarez for 5 years. And then I got that opportunity to play in the NFL. So now this dream that this little 9-year-old kid had was now a reality. I was drafted by the Tennessee Titans, and I'm on my way, right? So you can imagine my disappointment, my level of shock once my NFL career was over after a couple years. After a couple years. So again, this long 20-year career I was planning on having got cut down to 2 years, and I completely lost it. For about 2 years, I struggled. I struggled personally. I struggled professionally. I struggled. I was going through things that I could not even explain because I had never been in this place in my life. I remember my wife telling me one particular evening, she was like, "You are not the guy I married a year ago." We got married right after my rookie season in the NFL, and a year later I'm out of the NFL. And she's like, "Who are you? You are not the guy I married." And truthfully, I didn't know who I was. And I'm going to talk about why in a little bit, but for me, that by far, that 2-year transitional period was by far the hardest 2 years of my life. What I realized later is that what I was experiencing was a common problem, right? Like I was not special because I was experiencing these difficulties once I was transitioning, right? Like in conversations I had with athletes from different sports, former teammates, men and women from college that I kept in touch with, a lot of athletes were having similar struggles to the struggles that I was having once they were done playing. And so now today we know it's more and more research being done. I'm not going to sit here and read all of this, but it's and I'm happy more research is being done showcasing the fact that a lot of athletes struggle once they're done playing, from college athletes, professional athletes. Like once they're done playing, a lot of athletes have trouble finding their way. We actually just did a study in partnership with William James College in Boston at the end of 2019, beginning of this year. And we surveyed about 200 elite athletes, so college and professional athletes who are now retired or done playing. And we surveyed them, right, to see what kind of things were you dealing with, what struggles were you having. And it hasn't changed, right? Like athletes, this is common for athletes. So that's the point I'm trying to make right now. Like transition struggles for athletes are common regardless of sport, regardless of socioeconomic status, regardless of if it's by choice or forced. Like there are going to be some issues and some struggles there in most cases. So one of the biggest areas outside of the personal challenges, right, that a lot of athletes have are career challenges, and that's broad, right? So let's look at it a little closer. So career challenges. We know that once an athlete is done playing, oftentimes it's a struggle to figure out career things. But when you look at that a little closer, you can see a lot of time, if you narrow it down, it has to do with the lack of direction, right? Not knowing really which way to go, which path to take as far as a career concern, and a lack of fulfillment, right? So both of those. So either not knowing really how to get started or where to go, or winding up in a place career-wise where it's not fulfilling, right? It's I mean, think about it. You go off, you come off of this high of being this elite athlete performing in front of a crowd, right? And competing and setting goals and all of this stuff. And part of the reason athletes do what they do is because something about it fulfills them, right? Something about it tugs at their heartstrings. And now all of a sudden you go from that to, behind a cubicle. If a cubicle really, doesn't fulfill you, then you're trying to compare it to what you just did and it just won't work. So lack of direction, lack of fulfillment. And if you look at it a little closer, you can see that these two areas really stem from identity issues, a perceived lack of preparation and experience, oftentimes confusion, and then what I like to call bad fit jobs and careers. So these are, when you peel it back enough layers, these are the issues that athletes are facing when it comes to career challenges. So I have 5 keys for overcoming these career challenges. 5 keys. And truthfully, I hope that you can remember all 5. If you don't, that's okay. If you can remember 1 or 2 and say, you know what, I'm going to work on this with the athletes that I'm responsible for serving, the athletes that I'm responsible for helping to figure this stuff out, and make sure you facilitate opportunities for them to grow in these areas, then I would call that a success. But so here we go. Number 1. Rediscover, or perhaps discover for the first time, your passions, interests, gifts, and talents. Again, the reason why athletes are so successful is because, in large part, we've had tunnel vision for so long, right? We've been solely focused on accomplishing this dream, this goal of being the best athlete we can be, attaining a professional athlete status, whatever the case is, right? And so in the process of doing so, a lot of time we never tap into or discover our other passions, right? Our other interests, our gifts, our talents, or we've discovered them at some point, but we put them on a back burner, and again, in pursuit of being the best athlete we can be. And so one of the best places to start is to start to rediscover, to start to tap into those other things that make you who you are. We lost Kobe Bryant earlier this year. Heartbreaking tragedy. I was a huge, still am a huge fan of Kobe Bryant as a basketball player, but I was even more of a fan of him in his second act, right? Like, to see what he accomplished in a short time since he had been out of basketball blows my mind. It blows my mind to see. I mean, he won a freaking Oscar award, right? And but it didn't just happen. Like, I'll never forget, I saw an interview with Kobe Bryant. He was being interviewed by Stephen A. Smith on ESPN. This was maybe a year and a half after he had finished in the NBA. And Stephen A. Smith, he said, Kobe, you don't seem to miss basketball. Normally, when somebody who has accomplished the type of things you have accomplished, once they're done with their sport, a lot of time they struggle, right? A lot of time they either try to go back or they just seem so down. You don't miss it. Like, what's up, Kobe? Don't you want to go back? When was the last time you played? And Kobe said, the last time I played basketball, aside from shooting around in the yard with my daughters, was my last game. And he said, you're right, I don't miss it. He was like, I don't miss it because while I was playing basketball, I took the time. Get this. He said, I took the time to discover what I was just as passionate about as basketball, right? Which was the storytelling, right? The animated stuff, the stuff he had gotten into. So while he was still playing, he took the time to discover what his other passions were, right? What his other gifts were, what else he was talented in. And then he went on to say in that interview, he said, that's why I tell guys, don't wait until you're done playing to figure this stuff out. Like, take the time to invest in yourself now. Figure these things out about yourself now. And so that's the first key. Rediscover or discover for the first time your other passions, gifts, interests, talents. Number 2, find your intersection. this really has to do with fulfillment, right? Remember, we talked about career challenges. If you peel it back a little bit, what athletes are typically saying, former athletes, is that I'm not fulfilled. So many athletes, and I'm guilty of this. After we're done playing, we take jobs for the wrong reasons, right? We take jobs that don't align with who we are, that don't align with what we're about. I'm guilty. I've taken jobs solely based on how much money it was paying, or it had a title. I was the something something of something, but yet it did not engage these key parts of what I need in a job, right? What I need in a career. So the first one is passion, right? You want to, again, find a career that you're passionate about, something you care about. Secondly, you want to do something that incorporates your gifts and your talents, right? Something you're good at, right? So something you care about, something you're good at, and then something that aligns with your personal values or your professional values, right? Like, for example, if it's important for you to have autonomy, to have creative control, right, to have flexibility, then it makes no sense for you to go seek a career opportunity where you're going to be told what to do most of the time, and you're just sitting in a behind a desk stagnant, most of the time, because that doesn't align with your professional values. Or maybe it aligns with your professional values, but you don't care about the work you're doing. You could care less about it, right? You're selling some gizmo that you could care less about, when it's important for you to have an impact on people's life, and this gizmo isn't doing that, right? So you won't be fulfilled. But I'm telling you, if you can find the areas where all of these converge, right? Where your passion, your gifts and talents, your values, where all of these come together. If you can find that intersection, if you can encourage your athletes to start progressing towards that intersection, then that's fulfillment right there. That's fulfillment. That's how you find a fulfilling career, right? When you can engage these three aspects of in a career. Number three, use your superpowers. This was touched on in the last presentation, but it's so true. So many athletes feel as though I've had, listen, every year we talk to a lot of college athletes, and one of the things that consistently comes up is they say, I've been focused on my athletic career for so long, I don't feel as though I'm prepared, right? Like I didn't have like my peers who are not athletes, they had a chance to do internships. They had a chance to network like crazy. They had a chance to get these other experiences. And what I tell them is, you right, you know what? I don't want to downplay what you're saying. Maybe you didn't have all the internship opportunities and things like that, but what you do have that's so valuable that you don't realize is a superpower called transferable skills. These are the skills you have acquired from probably since you were 5-6 years old playing your sport, that the average Joe or the average Jill does not have, because they haven't been in the situations you've been in. They haven't been in the locker room where they had to lead a team that was divided. They haven't been in a situation where they had to manage practice and meetings and working out and eating right and school, and they most people haven't had these experiences. But if you can figure out your transferable skills, your top three, what I like to encourage people to do is figure out your top three. What really sets you apart? What have you acquired from being a student or a professional athlete that really sets you apart? Be knowledgeable of those. Figure out how to articulate it. Back it up with the example, so that when you start networking or you're going to a job interview and they hit you with the question, what do you bring to this organization? You can say, you know what? From my time of being a student athlete at this university, you know what? I've had plenty of opportunities to develop my skill of leadership, to develop my skill of time management, and then back it up with examples. Watch out, because that's what really is one of the things that can offset some of those experiences that you didn't have in pursuit of being the best athlete you can be. So transferable skills is your superpower. Number four, develop a game plan. One of the reasons that athletes are so successful is because, and a lot of times they don't realize it, but they've been constantly working on game plans, working on goals, right? Like nobody just wakes up one day and finds themselves on a college campus, being a student athlete, or nobody just wakes up one day and finds themselves in the Olympics or a professional athlete. It doesn't just happen. At some point in your life, you set a goal. At some point in your life, you developed a plan to make sure that you're going to accomplish that goal. And then what happened? And then you put that plan into place. What happens is, a lot of time when athletes finish, we sort of toss this this very important skill that we have out the window, right? Of goal setting, of creating a game plan. So what we encourage athletes to do is continue to set goals, continue to formulate a game plan that's, for one, is going to hold you accountable. It's going to give you the direction, right, that you might need during this time of your life, and it's going to help you to get to the place you want to get to. So do not, whatever you do, don't stop setting goals. Don't stop formulating a game plan to help you accomplish those goals. And number 5, seek support. This is huge. This was probably during those 2 years that I mentioned earlier when I was really struggling. This is probably the biggest mistake I made, right? Like thinking that, and part of it was just because of, sometimes as athletes, we've adopted this mentality that, we sort of have to shoulder everything on our own, right? That we pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, and some of that can be good, but if we're not careful, it can also be destructive, right? And so during this time in an athlete's life, it is vital, it is important that you encourage them to seek support. Encourage them. I don't care if it's just a friend to talk to, another former athlete, or a significant other, somebody to just get this stuff off of your mind, get the stuff that you're going through. I eventually ended up getting a therapist that helped me out tremendously. I finally started opening up to my wife, telling her the things that I was going through internally, right, psychologically during this time. But get a spot, right? Like it's not a sign of weakness to seek support, which sometimes I feel as though athletes might believe it is. But in this example, you take a strong, let's say a bodybuilder by example, right? Who benches 600 pounds, right? The most they ever bench is 600 pounds. Now, the next week, it's time for them to bench 605 pounds. Even though it's just 5 pounds more, they're going to get a spot, right? And it's not because they're weak, but it's because they're at a new level now. They're at a place they haven't been before, and so they recognize that, you know what? Let me get support to help me lift, to help usher me into this next level. I might not even need them to pull the weight that much, but just let me get somebody to help me enter into this new space. And again, it's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. It's a sign of just being smart, right? It's just so important. So encourage your athletes to seek support, and let them know you're there for them, right? Let them know any way you can support them, you're willing to do it, because it goes a long way. Just knowing when an athlete realizes like they're not on their own and that they have someone in their corner, and they got a safe place to go to and share things with, it can make a world of difference. So 3 key takeaways out of everything we said. I think these are 3 of the main takeaways. So take the time to rediscover or discover the rest of you. Seek career path that leads to your intersection, right? Where you're engaging your passion, your gifts and talents, and your values, and then leverage your transferable skills. Last thing I want to leave you with, I'd love to stay connected. This is my Twitter and Instagram, JOR_ATS. Also have a book called Games Over Life's Not, The Athlete's Guide for Transitioning. Book I wrote a couple years ago. It has all kind of exercises in it to help athletes navigate through this time in their life. Some of the things we talked about as far as finding your transferable skills or identifying your transferable skills, figuring out what else you're gifted and talented in. It has exercises in the book, as well as some good content just to help athletes. And that's available on our website, atscorp.org, or on Amazon as well. So yeah, that's all I have. Thank you again, Miriam, so much for this opportunity, and look forward to the question and answer session a little bit later.
Absolutely. Thank you, John. And it's a great follow-up to the session we had this morning, where we actually were talking about athlete wellness. And we had a lot of the coaches and agent and participant, our panelists were talking about how you need to develop an independent athlete that has potential outside of their performance, their athletic performance, and are considered for more than just their performance and their self-worth. And I think one of the message that you have, that Donovan has, that we have at Athlete Soul is really, you have the tool as an athlete to actually transition well. It's just switching that perception that athletes have, that they are only good on the field and they don't really know how to apply those skills they have outside of sport. So just changing that mindset to see those skills and then apply them in a different field or in a different industry. But yeah, it's all inside of all these athletes. They just gotta use it. They have incredible skills. That was great. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
We